Hi, I'm Selena from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester, and I'm here with Andrew Rader, who is an aerospace engineer and a writer. And he's written a book called Beyond the Known. And for readers unfamiliar with your work, how would you describe what you write,
Well, this
Andrew?
book in particular, Beyond the Known, is a history of exploration from the beginning of humanity into the future. And I sort of see it as the complete trajectory of humanity from when we were exploring the plains of Africa as nomads to our future wandering throughout the solar system and eventually the galaxy.
Oh, excellent. So what can readers expect from this book?
Yeah, I
Or a little
mean,
more.
obviously my career is sort of science focused, and I think my favorite subject is history. I've always been really interested in history, and so the book is basically, I would say, a history science sort of crossover. Some people sort of describe it as a big idea book, kind of like Jared Diamond or something like that, or Yuval Noah Harari. It's been compared to like Sapiens, that sort of thing. But basically, it starts with the premise that humans are curious and trying to learn things, and you can see this as a species, as a society, but also as individuals. This is kind of how we learn from being babies and children to adults, as we do it by trial and error and sort of exploration of our surroundings, right? And so that plays out on the scale of societies and civilizations as well. And so I think that's one of the things that really makes humans unique, is we are explorers, and that defines us learning things.
And
And
what was,
us,
oh, sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
What
Yeah.
was the inspiration for this book?
Yeah. Okay. So I guess, I mean, it's sort of in some sense the accumulation of all my interests, and really a lot of the book I kind of just wrote from what I wanted to talk about in some sense, because I think this book is kind of what I always think about, and I've always thought about since I was really young. You know, how did we get here, and where are we going, and why do we do the things we do, and what sort of caused us to be the way we are today. And I think exploration, if you think about times of progression throughout history, technological progression, exploration is always there. And it's one of the things that I think has been the most significant drivers of human technology. It's something that really creates the incentives that have developed our technology to where we are today.
Okay, and what makes you the an expert on this?
Well, an expert. Well, I don't know. I've never even called myself an expert on this, but um, so I mean, I have a fairly significant background, not so much formally, but definitely informally in history, basically. So I've always been really a passionate student of history, and so I read, that's pretty much what I read, is kind of nonfiction history
Mhm.
books, and so that side of it there. Um, and I've done a lot of sort of exploration myself, scuba diving and flying and things like that. So it brings together a lot of the things that I know a lot about. But then I am an aerospace engineer working at SpaceX, which is sort of at the forefront of the future of exploration. So it really does put me in that niche. So I see kind of the past and historical side of it, but also the future side of it. And as an engineer, actually, I have a book, a chapter. One of my favorite chapters is the chapter on aviation, because it talks about the trial and error and how we got here, and sort of that's sort of a manner of technological exploration. And I used Amelia Earhart as an example in that chapter. But that chapter was almost pretty much from my university courses in aerospace engineering, a lot of just the way the professors would talk and that sort of thing. So really, my actual formal training comes into the book quite a bit as an engineer. And my reflections on flying, actually, I wrote that chapter thinking about every time I would get in an airplane, I would think about, how do I feel about getting on this airplane? And because, flying is fairly unnatural. And if you think about it, it does seem a little bit, well, both miraculous and also a little bit daunting and nerve-wracking. So
Mhm.
as an engineer, I kind of use my understanding of how airplanes work to uh, control or pacify kind of my fears about my potential fears about flying, which I'm not but I totally get how someone could be a very nervous flyer.
So what do you think draws people to these kinds of books?
They want to know how things work. I mean, I think it's sort of because they were explorers too, and they want to understand how things work. I mean, that's what when I delved into a book. So I think people read for different reasons. And,
Hmm.
I do enjoy fiction as well. And I think a lot of that is escapism and sort of um, living a different life, living a life that is not your life, living someone else's life for a moment, for a time, and sort of experiencing the world through someone else's eyes. When I read books, I guess I just am really keen on learning new things, and actually, so I think one of the reasons I like history as a subject is that it's kind of like a puzzle, and there's all these pieces, and you're sticking together these pieces that you're finding from different books and different sources, and it creates this story of how the world works and where the world came from, and you kind of think, oh, this was going on in France in the 1400s, and this was going on in England in the 1400s, and how did these things interact? And I didn't know that, and so maybe they have something to do with each other. And so it's putting together puzzle pieces that fit together, and you're kind of creating the story for yourself out of all these different bits and pieces. And I find that really fascinating.
Hmm. And you've also written a couple of children's books, haven't you?
Yes, I have. I've written 4 children's books. Yes, 3 epic space adventure series: Epic Space Adventure, Mars Rover Rescue, and Europa Excursion. And they're basically tours of the solar system. And then the second and third one are, I guess, they were described as science fiction for children. Kind of, it's like a story that happens on Mars, and then later Europa, which is a moon of Jupiter, and it's the place with the largest ocean. It's potentially a place where you might find life. And then sort of the other one is rocket science, which is an engineering manual, you might say, for
Oh,
children,
wow.
I suppose, on aerospace engineering.
These are picture books, right? Are they?
These are picture books, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Um, so did you have to do a lot of research, getting back to to Beyond the Known? Did you have to do
Yeah.
a lot of research in order to write this book?
So funnily enough, not really, because as I said, it kind of brings together all the stuff I'd been studying and learning for my entire life. So, and it really takes together all my sort of interests on the side, the history stuff, and the actual expertise, which is the engineering parts, and it kind of melds those together. And I would describe the book as what kind of just generally goes on inside my head, basically.
So it's
So
melting.
the kinds I think, the kinds of things I think about. So I mean, basically, obviously, I've read a lot and I've had a lot of influences, and I do credit those and cite those. But I think kind of the book I just kind of wrote what I felt like writing, what I already knew about. And then, of course, I did do specific research to figure out certain details. So, for example, I knew about something that happened, but then I wanted to learn a little more of the details so I could tell it and confirm a few facts, right? Although I tend to be really good at remembering dates, terrible at birthdays, but really good at historical dates. So anyway, weird. But yeah, so I would kind of use references for spot checking facts, for fact checking and things like that. And yeah, and obviously then previously had read a number of books that influenced me. For example, I mentioned in the book Jared Diamond's books, Chem's, Germs, and Steel and Collapse, but I didn't actually read them. I mean, I read them about 5 or 10 years ago, and I just sort of remember the key things, and then yeah, exactly.
Sounds like the book is a melting pot of your head.
It is. That's exactly what it is. It's a melting pot in my head. Yeah.
Okay. So what else can we expect from you in the near future?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm thinking about writing another book about technology and the evolution of technology and how it's similar to evolution. I'm also thinking about writing about. I mean, so the funny thing about the book is one of my main interests is actually military history, and I do not mention it at all. So that's kind of interesting. So I was thinking about talking about the influence of military on technology or something like that. Yeah, but so I'm toying around with a few ideas. I think it would definitely be something that included a strong historical component because I just really enjoyed that so much. It's kind of funny because um, the people I worked with were always talking about how, okay, this has got to be a space book, basically. Like you really, your expertise in space, so it's got to be a space book. And I'm not opposed to writing a space book at all by any means, but I kind of have more fun writing the history part. So
Okay. Now, what made you decide to write?
yeah, I don't know, nothing really. It's just sort of inside me. I mean, I feel like I always knew that I wanted to write children's books. I
Hmm.
didn't know if I wanted to write an adult book, actually. So what happened was I had written some children's books because I just ran into randomly the illustrator, who's does a really great job. He's such a great illustrator. And so I happened to have some children's books with me when I was going back to Canada for Christmas. And lady who's sitting next to me had some young children, and I offered her a children's book for them for the flight. At the end of the flight, she said, "Oh, this is wonderful, and I'm a book agent. And have you ever thought about writing adult books?" And said,
Wow,
"Well, yes, I have actually. And here's some ideas." And so she encouraged me to do it, and it was really fun. Yeah.
that was great. That that's a great way to get into the business.
Everything always happens on an airplane. Actually, I have a friend who met his wife on an airplane, and this kind of stuff. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Great.
because you're just forced to sit there next to some random stranger for 5 hours. Might as well talk with
So, what do you
them.
think is the most challenging part of the writing process, and how do you overcome that?
Oh, okay. So procrastination, probably writer's block, I guess. So I think the best strategy for overcoming procrastination is tell yourself and convince yourself and be honest with yourself that you're only going to do 5 minutes of writing. Okay. So you say you're going to do 5 minutes of it, and this works for anything really. But I think the key to overcoming procrastination is tell yourself you're going to do 5 minutes of something, and then after 5 minutes, or it could be 10 or 15, give yourself the option of opting out. But once you've done 5 minutes, you kind of are already sucked in. And I'm the type of person that really doesn't want to go near that keyboard and write. But then once I do, I'll just do it for hours and hours and hours, probably way too long. Sometimes I would stay up all night writing and things like this. So just tell yourself you're going to do 5 minutes. And I think by the time you've done that, you're going to want to continue.
Okay. So, what's been your favorite adventure during your writing career?
Oh, that's interesting. So probably, I did a really great book tour around the Bay Area. That was really fun. I got to see a lot of places that I'd never seen before. So I think, book tours and interacting with people was really fun.
Okay. And what's the greatest lesson that you've learned in your writing career thus far?
Um, I mean, I guess you can, if you set your heart on something, you can do it. I mean, it's pretty daunting to write a book, but I think that the way you do it is lay out all your ideas and just write anything down at all. And it's kind of like I find it easier, and people may differ, but I find it easier to write by subtraction rather than addition. So you it's kind of like when you're making a statue, you just get the block of marble and you take away the marble. So just put everything down and then get rid of the stuff. This is the hard part though, is you don't want to get rid of stuff. The book was originally about twice as long. And of course it had to be cut, but I didn't know exactly what to cut. And it's hard to cut your own work. That's interesting. But anyway, so yeah, so just start doing something and you'll probably find a way to finish it.
Okay. And what piece of advice would you want to share with other writers?
What piece in advice?
What piece of advice?
Piece of advice. Yes. I think it's kind of similar to that. So just try. I mean, try writing something. Just get started and see what happens. And if you come up with something you really like, then you know, um, yeah. And I think write what you enjoy writing is really important. because you're going to be doing it, and you're going to be looking at it multiple times, and you're going to be editing the same thing for the 50th time or something like that. Is it goes much smoother if you really enjoy the work.
Okay. Now I've got some questions about you as a person. You've mentioned some of your passions and your hobbies, but what are your passions and your hobbies that you do when you're not writing?
Well, I do read a lot of books. I read about a book a week, something like that. Mostly audiobooks these days, which, by the way, was the most fun thing ever to record it. But yeah, because just I can do that while I'm driving and running and walking and things like that. But I would say I prefer actual books, but it's hard to find the time for me to do that. But yeah, so I read a lot. I'm really into aviation and space, obviously. My job is in
Really?
space. So it's really, yeah. So it's good. I like history. So my favorite thing to do is I'm a strategic war gamer. So basically I play, if you can picture, I don't know if people are familiar with Risk. That's probably the sort of most entry level game that people would know. It's like that, but 100 times worse. Or, if you see in the old movies like Doctor Strangelove, the big board, with all the armies and stuff like that, I really like to do that and, play historical war games. I've even had collections of little soldiers that you move around on the battlefield. I don't know if people have seen The Crown. There was one of the secretaries, I think, Michael, I think was his name, and he had this big setup of one of the battles, Salamanca, actually. It was a battle for some reason I even remember that. It was a battle from the Napoleonic Wars, and his moving around the little figures, and the Queen picked it up, and he wanted to put it back in the exact right place. Sort of like that kind of thing. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's great. So what does your writing space look like? And what do you need to have around you when you're writing? What do you need? Do you need to have food and drink?
Yeah, I think that, so I have an office basically with books in it, which is really helpful. I think that the main thing is getting in the zone, which I use big headphones and listen to music. I always listen to music while writing. I don't even know if I could almost write without music. But always no lyrics, or sometimes occasionally opera or something in a different language. So you're not really following the lyrics, I suppose. But yeah. So sort of classical music, and also electronic music of various sorts. So I think for me, setting the mood with the music is really important.
Okay. And do you, let's see, writers often have furry or feathered or otherwise non-human companions with them. And do you have any of those? And if you do, do they help or hinder you?
Oh yeah, I do not. I do like dogs a lot, but I don't have one at the moment. I get the sense that it would actually hinder though, because in a very good way, they would probably come up to you and want you to play with them. So yeah.
Okay. And I just have two more questions for you. One is, where can people find your work aside from Andy's Bookstop of Worcester? Although they should totally check here first,
Yeah.
and you can get beyond the known at Annie's. You can just call us at 508-796-5613, or you can send us email at orders@anniesbooksworcester.com. And where else could you get your book? Your books, actually.
Yeah, so you could get an autographed copy on my website, which is just my name, Andrew Rader. If you Google me, my website will come up, either the first or second, probably. So yeah, Andrew Rader, Rader, and yeah, that's a good place to get it.
Oh, okay. And where can we follow your work and share your awesomeness?
Yeah, Twitter. I use Twitter a bunch, at Mars Rader. So that's probably the best place, actually. Yeah.
And the website, you already just said
and
that,
my
right?
website, yeah, Andrew Rader. Yep.
Okay, and that's it, right? That's
Yeah, I have a Facebook page, but I don't really use it very much. But you can send me a message there. I'll probably get it.
okay. Well, that's all I have for you today. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Selena. Yeah.
And if you ever get to the Boston area,
Oh yeah.
you know, just
Well, yeah, I went to school there, so I might. But you know
oh,
what? I
did you?
actually have not. I went to MIT, yeah, but I have not actually been back to Boston since in about 7 years, unfortunately. So
Ah, okay. We definitely come by Annie's in Worcester.
yeah, I've been to Worcester before. Yeah, several times. Yeah,
Ah,
many times actually.
great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, and
Okay,
we will be seeing you.
perfect. Yeah. Thank you
Bye.
very much. Bye.